I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
Welcome back to the Passion for Craft podcast. Today, before we get started, we have a big update for everyone, really for you too as well.
If you say something about beauty, I'm going to hit you.
After a tense lunch argument. The line, the project that's been slated for the Middle East, that was supposed to be a 105-mile long glass wall on both sides, new urbanism development in the Middle East.
Not new urbanism.
Well, something. If there was a name for the movement, I would have known it. And that has been pushed back, or I guess modified a little bit. So their goal is no longer 105 miles long through the desert. Instead, they are doing 1.5 miles, and it won't be done until the year 2030.
It's quite the scale back.
So they were originally going to do 105 miles by 2030. They have moved it back to 1.5 miles by 2030. So I thought, as we've talked about it on this podcast before, it's really important to update everyone with the status of the line. And that's where we're at. So.
My bet is they don't build that.
My bet is this is their way of slowly tapering off people's expectations.
Okay, so it's 1,500 feet.
Yeah. So we built a model of it. All right. Well, the real topic of today is we're doing building it from the ground up, where we take a look at an architectural style. And we listen to Brent as he verbally processes through what is that style. Is that a fair assessment?
Sure.
Okay. Today's style, arts and crafts. We're working backwards through the timeline. So we've currently hit ranch style. Richard, help me out. Ranch
Period revival.
Well, sorry. Ranch is defined by a low-sloped roof.
Oh, what there? Yeah.
Big window panes.
Long stretched out build.
Yes, long stretched out shapes. That's right. So that's ranch, and then
single floor.
Oh, single floor is big. Not a lot of two-story ranches out there.
Mm-hmm.
Then period revival is a lot of different things. It can be a bunch of different periods that they've revived, but it can be Mediterranean, Italian, Tudor, French, colonial. Any other ones?
I think you got them.
They all have style things as well. Anything we missed, Master?
Yes.
Okay.
But no point in going over it now.
Yeah. Well, this episode, Arts and Crafts, hopefully more will stick this time. But this, I know I've said it before on the podcast, this has been the most helpful for me as I'm like clarifying what do these styles mean? Like how do I identify these things? Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited for today because I keep calling this style Art Deco or Art Nouveau, which it's not.
Okay. Richard, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay.
Do you like this style?
That's the style right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like it.
Do you think it's beautiful?
Oh my gosh. So
My taste does.
Yeah.
What is when does this style hail from? We'll do a little quiz to start.
Japan.
Oh, really?
Or China? So it feels like Asian.
What time period?
Oh.
1900s.
Really? The whole
1900s?
1910.
No,
1900.
1900.
1910, I'll say.
From when to when? Let me ask you
1890 to 1910.
I'll say 1900 to 1920.
All right, we're 10 years off.
Yeah, it's close. If you look at the really early origins of the style, it goes back to like John Ruskin and William Morris in England.
To say that, yeah.
And they go back to I think Ruskin's 1850s, 1860s.
You got it.
But in America.
But the arts and crafts movement doesn't really start probably until 1890-ish and then goes into about 1920. So
I got the start.
yeah.
With teamwork.
The heart of it is really probably 1905 to about 1915. And so
right in the middle of both of ours.
Yeah. It's represented by what three subcategory styles? So arts and crafts includes what three styles?
I'm thinking about it.
A blank movement out of Chicago.
Industrial movement out of Chicago.
No. P starts with a P.
I really felt good about industrial.
Starts with a P.
No. Progressive movement out of Chicago.
It's a it has to do with the
Palladian
landscape of the land.
Prairie style.
Prairie style.
Oh,
Yes, flat,
wouldn't
low
have got
slung.
there. Wasn't gonna get there.
Frank Lloyd Wright probably led that school. There was a whole number of architects that practiced the prairie movement.
So similar to ranchish, like low slung roof.
Well, that's where it came from. Is Frank Lloyd Wright doing it in 1900? Those guys picked it up in 1950.
Great.
So the other two subcategories.
I bet we're gonna get these. We missed the first one, but I
starts with a C.
Cascading movement. Colonial.
It starts with this. Our podcast is
Craftsman style. Arts and crafts. The craft style.
Craftsman style.
Really?
and then out on the West Coast starts with a B.
Bungalow.
Bungalow. So yeah,
I nailed that bungalow one.
Arts and crafts movement, right, is really run by and inspired by
Bungalow
a
Prairie.
very famous furniture maker named
Arts.
Bueller, Gustav
Stickley. I've heard that before.
Oh,
I don't
what?
know
That
anything
was
about him, but
impressive.
I've heard.
So
you say that.
Gustav Stickley was a furniture designer, and he started writing a book, a magazine called The Craftsman. And he was encouraging and inspiring people to make their own furniture, to live simply, and it was a whole movement.
Kind of like what you do.
And then the Prairie School, we're talking about Frank Lloyd Wright, and then the bungalows were led by what two brothers?
Homeboy could not spell.
The life so short, the craft so long to learn.
I mean, he's got the lift, the lift so short, the craft so long to learn.
The California bungalow movement was led by two brothers.
The Wright brothers.
Really?
Lehman Brothers.
No, I've heard you talk about these guys.
The Green Brothers.
Charles and Henry Green.
Yeah.
Green and Green, right?
Green and Green architecture. Okay, so they were the leaders of that style.
Some people call them the Wright brothers of architecture.
Some people named Jackson.
There are a
And
few
so
more.
it's but really the heart of this style is a rejection of what?
Victorian.
Yes, the
Nice.
over ornamented Victorian. Okay, the false styles. This is kind of the first early modernism. If you watch my Buildings and Brew on modernism, I have it going in three phrases, and that's actually easy for me to say. That's a house. That's a house. That's a house I want to go visit. It is in
Cali, baby.
It's in California. It's in Eureka, California, I think.
Nice.
It's a very famous, wealthy lumberman built that house. But it was this kind of thing that over the top, heavily ornamented, crazy, silly, towers and bells and yes, the McMansions of that period, right? And so,
Can I just say, just really fast? I just want to interject here.
I wish you would.
If you feel the same way, I'd love to hear it in the comments. I know the joke, the quizzes are really making fun of me and us when we don't know things, but also all that information just downloaded, like locked in.
Helps.
It's so helpful. Yeah. I know so much more about this style now than I've known. So feeling good.
Thank you, Jackson, for that.
I think it's important that like you teach us a lot of stuff. Sometimes but when you do it like this, it's like, I was wrong, I'm dumb, but that's helpful. I know.
So the Victorian, it's rejection of the Victorian. In fact, I'll make the comparisons that the McMansions of the 1980s is very similar to the Victorians. And look what happened after the Victorian period. You go to the arts and crafts. Simple, clean lined, honest architecture. And then what did we have after the McMansion period? I would say that cottage. I mean, what Chip and Joanna Gain do for whether you like it or not was a farmhouse, the simple farmhouse. Cottage craftsman. The cottage style was very popular in the early 1900s. I mean, 2000s, 1990s and 2000s. And so you actually can trace some parallels between, we talked about pendulum swinging, not a great analogy, but a pretty,
Well, you're using it now. I don't know what to tell you. For you.
So in any case,
Master craftsman.
the Victorian period pushes this movement on, and so
pushes that pendulum back.
If you read John Ruskin, okay, and this goes back to the early parts of it. Ruskin was a British writer and thinker, philosopher, who loved the Gothic, and he one of the reasons he liked the Gothic was because of the craftsmanship and the way that they built. He turn inspires a lot of
oh my gosh,
of Europeans, including William Morris, and that wallpaper that he just had up in there is a William Morris wallpaper, and he was doing designs out of England, and he really is the one who is they inspire Gustav Stickley and the others to kind of and really society to kind of move away from that Victorian-ish to the arts and crafts.
Wow.
Arts and crafts was a whole movement. There's arts and crafts furniture, arts and crafts textiles, arts and crafts, pottery. There's arts and crafts. So it was all about simplicity. And so there's a tile maker, very famous, did fireplaces all over Fort Worth. His name is
the fireplace man from
he was out of California.
Arson Williamson.
Batchelder, okay?
Yeah.
And so you'll have a bunch of Batchelder tiles, but you notice that the colors are all these muted earth tone colors. Dude, you are the fastest on the draw.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, that is unbelievable how fast you got that up there.
By the way, a couple episodes ago, we shouted you out because one of the guys said, Austin is like Passion for Craft's Jamie's better than Jamie on Passion for Craft. We got another comment. It's really funny. Well, I wouldn't go that far. But definitely props to Austin.
And so you'll if you look at his tiles and like this, look at those colors, okay? They're sand and stone.
Is he
and
doing this before he fires the tiles? Is he like hand etching that? That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would have been a mold. That would have been made in a mold.
Oh, okay, that's better.
And so, but look at awesome. Look at what that tile represents, right? This medieval, the kind of cottage, the kind of things that they aspired to build and do. So, the arts and crafts is one of my favorite styles because of its simplicity. I think the reason people like it today, you see that nouveau, the tapered columns, the bungalows. We looked at some of them in one of our last shows. We were talking about these builders who are, basically building this nostalgic brands that are based on this arts and crafts because it still appeals to us today. The reason I think it appeals to us is because we're rejecting that McMansion stuff and we want simple and honest.
Yeah.
So I think it's there you go. It's a noble style because of that. But so architecturally, this is one of the styles that's the Gamble House out in California. It's called the Ultimate Bungalow. Big overhanging eaves. They were influenced by the Japanese pavilion at the Columbus Arts Exposition in World's Fair in Chicago. And Frank Lloyd Wright and the Green Brothers saw that, and we're the deep overhanging eaves is part of this arts and crafts styling is thought to get its inspiration from things like this. So there are style. If the ranch is the last recognizable architectural style, this is the one that in my mind, is the purest American style.
This is like most true American.
Yeah, like it's unique. Like there's the bungalows and Craftsman and stuff aren't they're seen in other countries, but they don't have the presence like they do in America. And so
Do you think that's because like the proximity that we have to some of those other countries that we like cross over styles with? Like we're obviously really close to England because we came from them, and like French right next to England. Like, you know what I'm saying?
well, even though William Morris and Ruskin helped inspire the movement, they didn't inspire the architecture. Neither one of them were architects.
Yeah.
I think it's the purest American style, or the most American style, and it follows a very specific philosophical idea that rejection of ornamentation shows up in the tile. For instance, the moldings are all flat and plain. It was Gustav Stickley would say that they should be unpainted and stained so that the natural beauty of the wood could show through. The hardware is very flat and plain. All of the architectural and embellishment areas are holding on to this same ideal of simple, plain, honest architecture.
Cool.
And so, the brackets that hold up that roof are very plain compared to the Victorian brackets that were just over the top, carved and all kinds of ornamentation on them. So, anyway, the thing that as the master builder piece of this that I want you guys to kind of recognize and see is the windows. For one, they're called Queen Anne sash and Queen Anne windows. Anybody know what a Queen Anne window is?
Yeah, it's when the top has muntins, right? Divides, and then the bottom's open. It's like
Correct.
a giant piece of glass.
Correct.
Sick.
So those would be
that was
Queen Anne
fast.
sash and Queen Anne windows. They go to the Queen Anne period of Victorian architecture, but that kind of ornamentation, like those top left sash, are very popular, where you sometimes have colored glass on the outside edge, especially in Victorian houses.
Why don't you guys do any of this?
We don't have a lot of architecture that calls for it. If you go, so the Queen Anne sash dates to about, I just did this window chapter in my book. They start showing up in the catalogs in about 1880s, and they last into the period revival era. The 6/1 period revival window that's so popular is a Queen Anne sash.
Wow.
During the arts and crafts period, it's a 3/1 is the most popular one.
Yeah.
Or you'd see the kind of the Frank Lloyd Wright version. I think those are
3/1
Yeah.
at the top, it looks like.
Are those Queen Anne sashes made to give the illusion that the window's open, like more airy?
No, I don't. That's a good question. I don't think so. I think it was a decorative element that basically got slimmed down. I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't know why it's attractive. I don't know why it
looks
works. And I don't. There's a proportional thing that they do in furniture, that the big drawers sit on the bottom and the drawers get smaller as they go up.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that we're reading that big piece of glass and then the smaller pieces of glass make it look balanced. I don't know, but it is an odd phenomena.
It almost acts like a plinth to a column, you know?
What's that?
It almost acts like a plinth to a column.
Yeah,
and
it's
you kinda
like a
got,
base,
supporting-
right? Yeah, and so one that's a very distinctive window style. You start to see.
Sorry, we
Queen Anne
see
sash-
it in period revival,
Yeah.
but it originates here.
It originates in the Queen Anne period of Victorian
of course.
architecture.
Okay, yeah.
And then it's sometimes in the magazines called a bungalow sash.
Okay.
Obviously part of the bungalow movement. And then the other window that comes up in this time is called a cottage window. And the cottage window is the very first picture window. There's some at Thistle Hill where you have leaded glass in the upper part and then a big open pane. But they're disproportionate. The top, it almost looks like a transom,
Yeah.
is a third of the size of the big window. That's another window that comes from this period. So sometimes leaded glass, sometimes just stained glass, but a big open window that oftentimes opens up. Cool. So those are two distinctive windows. The the columns are unique in this period. Okay, so you have these large piers. Okay, and then the tapered columns at the top. You have the tapered columns. You have a situation like this where that porch is supported by the two columns on the end.
Yeah.
It's only the beefy, strong nature of those columns that allow that thing not to feel like it's going to be crushed.
And that arch, right?
That helps as well. So the decorative rafter tails that show up on these houses.
On the upper floor, is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking right over the porch. Those
the overhang.
Yeah,
Okay,
those rafter tails, exposed rafter tails. Open eaves were part of this thing because of, as opposed to a boxed eave, because of the bungalow nature, the simplicity of this style. Yeah, so, if you look at arts and crafts moldings, okay, they're typically just 1x4s, 1x6s, whatever.
What does that mean? Like when they're 1x4? Here, I can grab them.
It just means it's a piece of wood that's 1 inch thick by 4 inches wide.
Got it.
Now, that's its real size, or the nominal size. The actual size is 3/4 by 3.5, or
because they
3/4
shave
by
it down a little
5.5.
bit when they don't roughen it.
To the mill.
Okay.
So, that when we did design the Windsor moldings, that the classical craftsman comes from a period catalog from the 1920s, and it's just it has a plain plinth, it has a plain 1x. Has a plain header and then a little cap on top. And so
very simple,
and it's still popular today.
Yeah.
But that's where it starts and harkens from.
Cool.
Tile, the hex tile, this is where that hex tile stuff starts. So when you see those bathrooms, the hex tile, that is kind of part of this style. Typically these houses had a very simple kitchen. I don't know what other details I need to get into on this.
So just what I'm hearing from you, like some of the distinctive things that it's a bungalow, or are they two separate ones? Like, is this period revival again where there's like a bunch of different ones underneath it?
Well, it's like this house right there.
Yeah.
Okay, is that a prairie, a craftsman, or a bungalow?
All of the above.
Yeah. It's kind of a mix of them. Okay, the true prairie would be more like what Frank Lloyd Wright was doing. Mostly, and bungalow was used as a term at that time for just a small house. So
that's how I've always heard that term.
Okay,
well, it's just like a small.
The house catalogs will, there's a Mediterranean house I can think of in one of the house catalogs that basically said, nice bungalow, 10-room house, and so. The term that I'm using it in the arts and crafts sense, the bungalow, inspired by Green and Green and that kind of thing. Bungalow obviously comes from the West Indies and the kind of houses that they had there, which were simple in style and everyman cottages and things like that. Fairmount, which is our historic district here, the largest bungalow district in the country, all working men houses.
That's right here.
Mm-hmm. So.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. So that all built during that time period.
I take back what I said.
No, and then craftsman is inspired.
You like Fairmont, right?
I just saw that it needed a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
The craftsman is Gustav Stickley's magazine and everything else, but.
The working man's home, right?
Yeah, they're all working men home. I mean,
okay.
it's not, you have the ultimate bungalow in California, but that's rare. You don't have really mansions built in the bungalow style. You don't really have mansions built in the craftsman
That's kind
style.
of a crazy oxymoron, like a mansion bungalow.
Yeah.
But that's what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were simple houses, and really you're one of the reasons why we have so many of them is because that style starts right when cities are starting to grow, right when cities are starting to expand. Fort Worth is expanding. The reason we have so many bungalows is Fort Worth was growing with the oil and cattle and everything else that was going on here, and it was exploding in growth. And so they're just building those houses by the miles, and they're on the west side, they're on the north side, they're on the south side, they're everywhere. So.
Okay, so it's almost
very
like
popular house style,
like a 3 Venn diagram kind of deal. And so when you kind of see
Kamala.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out like how to identify these things. And that's my goal in this series,
No, I
right?
know.
So when I guess because it's such a staple of like multiple styles, this is one of the fun ones where you kind of got to go, does it check this box? Does it check this box? Does it check this box? Yes, probably this. Or does it check these two?
So
why would it check these two?
I mean, so deep overhanging eaves,
Yep.
exposed rafter tails, oftentimes decorative rafter tails in that they've been cut into some kind of shape.
Yeah.
Low pitched roof, typically. This is probably like a 5 and 12 or 6 and 12. And that's about as steep as it gets. Ranches can go down to 3 and 4 and 12s. And so,
Will they ever have round columns? I mean, I know those are they will,
but usually they're big, strong round columns. So they're massive in size when they're round.
Wow.
And that speaks to that just rustic, simple, not heavily ornamented, strong. It's considered a masculine. Like my wife, Christy, doesn't love arts and crafts because it's too masculine. It's too dark. It's not bright and airy. And so,
I could see that.
yeah. A lot of this stuff that I see that they do on these houses, especially in Fort Worth, is like that cap on that porch.
Yeah.
How thick do you think that cap is?
Thick, do you mean width-wise, or do you mean
On the brick, top of brick?
Top of brick.
3 inches.
It's actually like 4 or 5 inches.
Wow.
And so
what cap? I'm so sorry.
the white cap on top of the porch
balcony.
brick.
Sorry,
yeah.
I thought you were, okay, yeah.
I learned that because I actually went and measured it, and because I was doing a video on a tapered column, and I went and I was encouraging people to go out there and just measure what you like and actually find out what size it actually is.
You just go into random people's house. And
Yeah.
measure stuff.
Love your columns. I measure them. So fairly low pitch roof, not as low pitch as the ranch.
Yeah.
You know, these simple designs, these closed rafter tails, front porches like this are fairly common. Strong.
I love these front porches.
Architectural details, flat moldings, simple and plain.
I know what house one of my friends has a arts and crafts house in Denver.
Yeah, there's a bunch in Denver.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, essentially any city that grows up after, 1900 or is growing in that time period, Denver, Fort Worth, Chicago, is going to have a lot of houses in this style.
One thing that's really interesting about this one is the front porches, like the brick railing on the front porch is really interesting to me because it almost makes it feel a lot more like closed in, like you're in a little cave on the front porch than.
Well, it's meant to be a visual safety net, right? A visual comforting, I'd be safe up under there, I'd be protected,
right?
In the mouth of a cave.
I like these overhanging eaves, and I see how it's like a really similar thing to the Japanese pagoda.
I don't find that people screw up bungalows, and maybe because they're such simple structures, right? You don't have really crazy roof lines on these things. It's typically
It's a pretty crazy one.
Simple, gable end, either a side gable or a front gable, and a dormer. And so it's not like you have multiple, pediments and eaves and things like that going on.
And these two that we've seen have been shed dormers, right? Is that what they're called?
Yeah. I don't see a shed dormer there, but yes.
Those last two.
Is this the ultimate pagoda, or is this the ultimate bungalow?
Not.
No, it's not.
It's a green and green project,
Okay.
but it's not a...
I mean, it's big. It's very larger than life. I mean, that other one said it was a 7-bedroom. Which is crazy.
7-bedroom or 7-room?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a 7-room house.
Okay.
And they used to advertise in those plan books either the cubic feet. So you see these things like 32,000 cubic feet, and you're like, okay, how do I transfer that?
They're counting the volume of the house?
Yeah, they're counting the volume of the house. The other thing they would say is they would quantify the size of the house by the number of rooms it has, as opposed to square footage or something like we might do today.
It actually kind of makes sense to quantify it by
7-room house, and you're like,
cubic.
we're not used to
Well,
it.
because I don't like the cubic thing because I have in my back room, it's like a 20-foot ceiling of unusable space.
Oh, really?
So it's like a bunch of cubic feet, but what are you going to do with it?
Right.
That's a good point. Especially if it's not walkable.
And most of these houses now have, not these, but like big high ceilings, you know. I don't like high ceilings. Unless they're done right.
On this style that we should be going through. It makes
I think one thing you mentioned in your talk about this was like the organicness, like the stuff coming out of the earth. Or is that?
Yeah. Or
was that another style?
No. Yeah. I mean, if you look at that was this, and essentially there's almost two categories. There's the things that Frank Lloyd Wright and Green and Green would do, and then there's the rest of them. And so a lot of these bungalows that came from California from Green and Green do grow up out of the ground, and you'll see these large rocks turn to smaller stones.
Yeah, that was cool. I remember that in your presentation.
Yeah, it's a really cool architectural detail, and it's grounding it in the earth, right? It's like it's grounded in the earth, and it's kind of growing up out of it like a plant.
I think that's a really cool thing. Like I love the way that looks right there.
Yeah,
it looks really cool.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on there, but it's still very simple. That's a sleeping porch and kind of a gathering porch up there on the right, and then you really just have a main body here and a main body here, right? It's just it's a T or an L or whatever it is.
There's a ton of craft.
Yeah,
a ton of craft in there too. Like with the timbers,
One of the things that's really interesting to me about this is I feel like in every other example that we've seen where they've layered two shapes on top of each other has been awful. Like I'm just thinking of that McMansion. I know we've talked about it a lot, but the Control V, Control C one, how it had those two triangles just sitting in on each other. It's just like, what?
I see that all the time on these houses that I'm fixing. The double gable.
Why?
Because it creates visual interest from the street.
I guess, but
it makes it look.
This is doing it well, And I think about like where the roots of this are coming from. With the pagoda, the Japanese is pagoda, right? I'm not trying to mess it up. Okay, so with those, I mean, those are literally layered upon layered upon layered of the exact same shape, but it's very interesting. And I think it comes back to proportion, I'm sure, but like why it works, but then some doesn't. But this is that, right? This has multiple layers of the same thing.
Well, I mean,
but it's actually good.
The difference, I would say, is that the houses we were talking about. And there you can see the growing up out of the ground.
Oh,
you have the large boulders on the right, and then the smaller boulders in the brick.
That's so cool.
It is cool.
But the double gable is usually a gable and then another gable, but there's nothing there.
There's no purpose.
There's no purpose.
Like here, there's purpose.
Like here, there's purpose. Those gables are coming out doing porches and stuff like that. And so.
They're really just putting trim or molding or something on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's typically bad when people do that.
That looks so nice.
That's unreal.
And it's so peaceful there. It looks out over this bluff. If you just stand up there, it's just like
you've been there.
Yeah, it's just such an oasis. It's I
gotta say, this is kind of taken my cake a little bit from the Cotswolds in terms of a favorite thing. Really? You've swung me, I guess I'm saying.
It's
on your argument.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's probably my favorite architectural style.
Wow.
What's the deal with the dragon scales on this guy? Is that common or is that just this house? I've seen it on a couple
Shingles?
of them. Yes, the dragon scales.
Why are you saying dragon scales?
These are some of the bigger shingles that I've seen, and I've never really seen it on the side of the house shingles before.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was kidding. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, no.
Well, I feel like I've only seen shingles on a roof like that, or
no.
Usually it's like shiplap housing.
You're going to go to Boston, and that's all you're going to see.
Really?
I mean, there's a whole style called the shingle style, and its houses just
is it contagious?
Completely shingled up.
You're going to call them dragon scales.
And then there's the New England Capes, which are all the shingles.
Really?
And so yeah.
And then the professor's going to call Brent.
Yeah.
You just feel like, what
in the world? Did you not teach him anything?
He's trying to shoot an arrow between its scales.
Yeah. So shingles are, shingles on the side of the house are a historic and popular way of cladding a home.
I guess it's on the, no, it's not. I was thinking it was on the Paul Revere house, but it's not.
No,
but it's kind of similar to that because they did the the overlapping
The
bands of
scarfing.
wood. Yeah, the scarfing. Scarfing it down.
Seems like a lot of plants are involved too, like the
I feel like you got to have the landscaping right if you want to do this well, because you take away a lot of that greenery. I mean, it's still a good looking house. And stuff.
it just I think because of the organic nature of it, the plants
Especially the
just
right
add
side.
so much more.
Can you
to
type
it.
in interior Gustav Stickley interior? One of the other things you'll see on his houses is that the inside, and they do it in this bungalow house. See that horizontal band that runs across, and then you have the timbers above. So that trim piece that runs over the fireplace and over the window, it's kind of a banding that kind of wraps and ties the room together. It'll tie together door headers, window headers. That's
So everything's
that
at that
fireplace.
height.
So everything's there, and then you see that next layer at the roof. But that white band is sometimes William Morris has a paper that goes around there, and it,
It's like a frieze, right?
yeah, it's like a frieze. It's like a large frieze. It's like a rustic frieze. And so, but when you see, and in the catalogs, you'll see doors, and they'll have this header band that runs it kind of across and disappears. That's what they're trying to mimic and show off, is that arts and crafts detailing. Timbers in the ceiling like this are pretty popular and pretty prevalent in the catalogs of the 1900s and 1940s. So you'll have boxed beam in dining rooms with lights that come down from where they cross and things like that. It's very popular. Frank Lloyd Wright did that at the Roby House. Those are advertised pretty heavily, and so but the box beams is a pretty popular feature this time. Slats on the stairs, you'll see.
What do you mean by slats?
I don't see it there. It's a basically, instead of having a spindle, you'd have a flat board. We did it at the
like
barn.
the picket style.
Yeah, at the barn. Not like that. Those are like 2x2 pickets. The slats are more like we did at the barn.
So kind of taking what they did outside on the balcony, where it was like that, instead of like a thinner board, it's like a full 2x4.
Well, it's not a very thick board. It's still oftentimes only 3/4, but it's wide. So
Wide,
it's like
yeah.
4 or 5 inches wide.
There's that band above the door header, how it keeps going.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, like that.
You're doing great. Yeah. That looks like a copy of a green and green stair. I don't know if it is one.
It's a cool detail.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of visual interest there with the very simple design, Mm-hmm. I also really like the little lantern post.
Yeah,
I
I was
don't know
looking at that.
how to
Hanging
call
lantern.
it, but I mean, that's a cool detail as well.
Well, it looks like a Japanese lantern, and it's
Really.
yeah, and then it's hung there. The other thing that you'll see in green and green architecture is what's called the cloud lift pattern. Mm-hmm. And then in that window in the background, you'll see that band goes across and it goes like this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a cloud lift, and they've got the same detail
On the window.
in the windows, but it's not this V part; it's the horizontal part. It goes like this, and then goes up just a little bit, and then comes down. It's called a cloud lift.
It's not doing it over the whole thing, over the whole window, up to the V's. That's what it looked like. I may have misseen.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's a cool pattern. They had it on the outside of the ultimate bungalow house as well. It was over top of the archways. It's pretty cool.
The fireplaces in this style are typically not wood; they're typically brick or stone. Look at that timing, Kristen. Good job there.
That was great.
The
and the cloud lift pattern on the top.
cloud lift pattern there, but look at how they've treated that fireplace. Okay, so fire protection was a big thing here.
It was?
Oh, it was huge, and so
Okay.
So
I thought it wasn't prior to a little while.
well, you had the Chicago fire and the San Francisco fire. One was in the 1890s, one was in the early 1900s, and they were thought to have been started by different methods, but fireplace and fireplace safety was a big thing. That whole little section right there is called an ingle nook. Ingle nooks are kind of part of this style. Ingle nook is basically an inset little deal around a fireplace. And so
cool.
the fact that they've got that little sitting area with the little bookshelves and then the little couches on either end,
Yeah.
it's called an ingle nook.
I mean, they're leaving like 2 or 3 feet, or probably 2 feet for the area above the fireplace, which is interesting.
Well, and so you'd see these broad, expansive areas like that. They did the same thing at Thistle Hill with that big fireplace in the entry. Right. But the all kinds of companies, Batchelder, reason why Batchelder fireplaces are so popular is because they were fireproof fireplaces. Facebook companies were advertising their Facebook and offering whole books on mantles to be made out of brick.
That's the Facebook book. Facebook book. Just trying to make a Facebook joke, but I tongue twisted my words. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the one at Thistle Hill.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so, that's a tile one, but it's the same kind of features.
Does that room look arts and craftsy to you? It
is. And so, the room right there is kind of arts and craftsy, and then the billiards room is also arts and craftsy.
Yeah.
And so, it's a little bit.
It's got a little more detail.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Okay. It's a little more.
That house is like just a mixture of so much.
It's a big mansion.
Well, think about it. I mean, it was originally built in 1904, then redone in 1910. So it's right during that period. So to see arts and crafts influences in that house is
why did they do it, remodel it so fast?
They sold it, and another buyer came in and then fixed it up.
Electra sold it?
Yeah, to the Scots. Is that right? I can't remember which one was which.
So she didn't stay in it long?
I don't remember.
That's
I think
crazy because her
ran
dad
out of money.
Did it, right, for her? He's like, this guy did it for his daughter. And
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
The Scots, yeah. Wagner was the first one. Scots were the second one. Yeah. So, fire kitchens in these houses were very small. They're work areas. They were, but anyway,
so intentionally functional.
Intentionally functional. It was the efficiency of the fewest steps possible.
It looks kind of cool.
Is the reason why a lot of those kitchens were so small.
It looks very blocky and cloudy and like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the kitchen there, and this is a really nice kitchen because it has that wainscot that goes up to that banding, or the tile that goes up to that.
That's
banding.
cool how the tiles inset into all that wood. I like that.
Yeah,
that
a really stove is awesome.
That's a really neat idea, actually. Yeah, I've never seen that.
The tile behind the wood,
just tile inset into all those wainscot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's usually it would be wood or just wall.
Yeah.
But I guess since it's a kitchen, they're thinking like, if it gets dirty, we just wipe it.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang, that's sweet.
So, what questions do you have about that style? I don't find that it's a style that's necessarily screwed up very much.
Yeah.
Versus like the colonial revival, where the details or the English or the Mediterranean are always messed up. It's whether that's the simplicity of it or whether it's the charm of it. People get it right. I don't know, but they're great houses. They're great houses.
So it looks like maybe we could talk about key features then.
For sure.
The shed dormer, another one, right?
Yeah.
Is that a shed dormer?
No, that's a doghouse dormer.
On the right side or on the top?
Right over the front of the house.
Doghouse dormer. Okay.
It's a shed roof over that little bump out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the
others in the doghouse.
Big front porches.
Big front porches.
Are these skinny fireplaces a feature? I've seen that on a couple of them where there's like this. They almost have it like showing the shape of the fireplace on the side of the house that then protrudes through the roof. That's like,
Well, that's pretty typical detail.
Okay.
There's a nice. That one has a shed dormer, and then the use of the river rock for the fireplace.
Yeah.
is a charming detail.
Decent price too,
and popular.
I'd take a Savoy.
I'll take 2.
But that's it. No more.
And then that one doesn't have big column.
You know what's crazy about this is that this Sears and Roebuck house is that they would ship this house out, and you think of some of all the little details that they would have and come in. I would love to go back in time. I'd almost go back in time to see how they pack these houses.
Do an unboxing.
Yeah.
I wonder if they have any you can buy.
Unsold ones.
Unsold or like. Surely there's some in existence.
That would be so cool.
That would be cool. But if you look at the catalog listing of those houses,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like hardware, screws, nails,
That is crazy.
nails
That's
even.
IKEA.
mortar for your
No way.
for your tile in your bathroom. You know, all the different
that's so cool.
parts and pieces that were shipped to you. It's crazy.
What
Yeah.
did it come in?
Rail car. Yeah.
You know what's?
No
I feel like
way.
that's the first innovation of like the housing thing we talked about in the 3D, printing.
printer.
Like that was a big. That guarantees you're gonna get the details right because it's on the box for you.
You have to. So here's a question on this. Do you think it's not getting messed up because of the simplicity of it, or because it's such a distinctive American style? Like, where it's really, there's not a lot of like other influences that are coming into it.
I think that it's like they don't screw up the colonial revival houses as bad in New England because they have so many good ones to look at. I think that the housing stock of these the historic housing stock of this style are so plentiful that we
People
don't
know
screw
what
it
they're
up
looking at.
because they recognize it and they see it enough that they don't screw it up.
You haven't seen any like screwed up in Fairmount or anything?
Well, I mean the columns out front are typically messed up. I did a video on tapered columns before because I think that people mess them up. But otherwise, I'm like,
Pretty good.
Yeah, they're not bad, right? And I think it's a combination of what you're saying. It's that simplicity and,
All right, house plans.
So there's a number of companies that made houses in this time period. Montgomery Ward's did one. Offered their houses for sale, and they came to you by rail car, and you can see.
Do you have gloves?
No, you don't need gloves.
You sure?
Yeah, just be careful with it. So the Gordon Van Tine was another one that sold these homes, but if you look in these catalogs, to think that they packaged and sent a barn like this.
Are you kidding?
Right?
That's a nice looking barn.
It's a really nice barn. And then they show the building details inside.
3-bedroom bungalow. Just like we're talking about. Guaranteed prices, no extras.
See, what they would do is all framing cut to fit. And
No way.
Yes. So they were pre-cut lumber. And so there was one company that Aladdin actually numbered all their studs. And so that you knew which slot it went in. And
So
because
it's like between 11 and 12.
it's the IKEA that you were talking about that they're basically a homeowner or a farmer or someone was putting the house together. So they'd send it out to this farm, send it out to the city, and then
How would they get it from the train to the
It looks like
unclear carriage horses?
Well, if you look in, like usually the front of these things, front of that one probably shows it, how it starts in the factory and how it ends up in your house.
Facilities that make Gordon Van Tine service possible.
And so, but
Main office, Plant, Davenport, Iowa.
So this one was all farm building, right? And so that's how farms were done. And I can't imagine being a farmer and this coming in your mail and ordering a barn through the mail
That is
like
so
that.
Can I read some of these prices to you guys?
Yeah.
I was looking at that.
1926. We've got a oh my gosh. The highest price one I can find right now is $2,442. Price ready cut. That's just crazy. So that's
But I've got another catalog that shows Montgomery Ward's thing, and all the millwork came boxed up. So like the colonnade and cabinets and doors and stuff came completely made and assembled, ready to put in place. So
It was like $7 for an interior door.
yeah,
In solid oak.
that's
isn't
bonkers.
that crazy?
Just shows you the price of the dollar.
No doubt.
But let me see if it has this.
It has at the front. It has the facilities that they use at the very front
No,
page.
I was gonna see if it had.
What did that say? Japan? Oh.
Japatop.
Yeah, probably not.
I thought they had in here.
$260 for a gallon of paint.
No way. $260?
That's no.
I know.
I was like, what? You could order it right here.
Dude, they have an order blank. Are they still in business?
Let's order one.
It said price cut.
And they have to honor
it
the
said
price.
guaranteed. No extras.
Okay, what we furnish. Okay, doors, all interior doors, 2-panel design. All doors a quality inside finish, clear sash, Doug fir, craftsman pattern. So that's the craftsman moldings,
And
base
mortised
molding,
for locks.
end squared bundled picture molding, chair rail. So all your moldings, blinds, windows, lattices, and trellises. Mantle shelf, dome damper, ash trap. That's for your fireplace.
Yeah.
Main stair. Can you imagine getting the stair package?
Can you imagine all this stuff shipping by a train and not
Kitchen,
breaking?
pantry, linen cases.
You know what I'm saying? Like they put this in a train and it was like, like on
Yeah.
not well maintained train roads.
The following miscellaneous material is furnished: scaffolds and braces. That's crazy.
You're getting extra
waterproof paper for covering lumber.
What?
Wow.
Grounds for guides for plaster. Backing strips, hardwood thresholds out of all side. I mean, they're thinking through every aspect of that.
They thought through every aspect. Like they literally
We're
had
ready to ship all hardware. Mortise lock sets are furnished. Hinges, bathroom hardware is all nickel plated. Miscellaneous hardware. Nails, proper sizes for all purchases, such as common nails for framing, case nails for outside finish, finished nails for interior work, lath nails, and galvanized shingle nails.
Dude, this makes IKEA look awful.
Tin work,
Yeah.
valley and flashing tin, downspouts, gutters, paints, oils, and varnishes, quality brand paints, varnish for inside, putty, pure linseed oil, sandpaper, steel wool.
Dude, what?
Just
Isn't that crazy?
just fill this out. We have to do it. You see this thing? Let's each get one.
Ship to Mr. Mrs. Miss. All members of one family should be under one name. Street office, rural route. I don't think we have those anymore. Post office, shipping point, if different from the post office. That's so funny. Be sure to state size and color. Oh my goodness, that's so impressive.
That is
that
crazy.
crazy?
It's also crazy looking at all these ads that are in yours. Like there are add-ons, right?
Mm-hmm. It's all really good stuff.
So anyway, kind of got lost there on that thing, but it made me think of that when we were talking.
It's just
about.
really cool. They really did a great job of it.
Yeah, it was, that was
farm-
amazing.
Pull up those farms. I know it's not the point of today, but will you hold up? Here, I'll hold up. Look
They even
how
have
good
the-
these farms look.
The big steaming factory. They don't even care.
Yeah. And that's,
I mean, look how great these farms look.
I know they're
They're
Really
beautiful.
nice.
the artwork that they do for these is part of that, part of the marketing and everything.
Here, Brent, show it on the camera.
Okay. The artwork, and I was showing the
That's so nice.
the different areas, but look at this. Look at the section through here. And the
No
different-
way.
All framing cut to fit. Self-supporting braces and rafters. But imagine looking at that and ordering that.
Sorry, I was selfishly
And we
trying to
talked
see
about
it.
all the materials that they're providing, and even providing
It's
the
even got the concrete piers.
waterproof paper to protect your lumber before you put it up. Is like, really? So anyway,
That is so crazy.
So literally, you are buying a house, no labor.
yeah.
yeah, pretty much.
But then think about how much more you would care about that house if you built it.
I've got a friend who has a home building company, and for years built
Allowed
the
the
shell, okay, but then handed it off to the homeowner to finish.
How would that even work? Like framed it or
Yeah, they framed it,
Okay.
did the electrical and then plumbing, and then said you're going to do the sheetrock, the floors, the trim,
Give 'em the hard part.
give 'em all that stuff. And the whole thing was, once they put that work into it, they always are the best. They always pay their mortgages. They always pay their things. Said they're better homeowners because they had done the
no
work.
way?
I
Yeah.
believe it.
It's
Yeah.
true. That is crazy.
That
Dude,
is-
shout out to Lydia because drywall's the hardest part. Hands down. I've done every part of it in very small quantities, but I have done every part. And
It's not easy. That's for sure.
I'd take wiring or plumbing over the drywall any day.
She makes it look easy too.
She makes it look so easy.
Yeah.
She's crazy. All right, well, cool. Thanks for watching this episode of the Passion for Craft podcast. Hopefully that gives you a better idea of the arts and crafts home style. The low-pitched roof, the overhanging roof trusses, and other
Rafter tails.
Rafter tails, that's one. Columns, front porches, all those.
3/1 windows.
3/1 windows, Queen Anne style. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.